friends! My name is Desiree, aka Mama Friendly, and I do all sorts of videos on my channel, from cooking videos to planner videos, vlogs, hauls, homeschool videos with a Disney twist, a little bit of everything. So if any of these things sound like fun to you, I hope that you'll subscribe and join me on my YouTube adventure. So for 2022, I'm on a no spend / use it up. I'm trying my best to not buy anything that is not an absolute necessity, no luxuries, etc. Just keeping everything super bare bones and using up what I already have, which luckily for me is plenty. The perks of being an over shopper. So a few weeks ago, I released a video where I did a pantry and freezer challenge that was being hosted by my friend Cynthia at our Big's Adventure. I'm gonna post that original video in the description box, and I'll also have it linked up here in the corner. You guys seemed very interested in seeing me cook out of my pantry and freezer, particularly because I eat gluten and dairy-free exclusively, and so there's no hamburger helper here, etc. You know, it's all stuff that has to fit my lifestyle while also trying to adhere to a rule that I made for myself, which is I'm trying to not buy any extra ingredients. I'm trying to eat exclusively from what I already have. And I realized that while I'm on this mission of continuing to eat through my pantry and my freezer before I buy anything else, there's loads more meals that I could show you guys because obviously I eat multiple times a day, right? So I want to show you another set of throw together meals, recipes, I guess, that I've eaten in the last couple of weeks from my pantry and freezer. And of course, it's not to say that everybody's gonna have these same things in their kitchen, but it might give you a little bit of inspiration, a little bit of a jumping off point. Maybe you're not trying to eat through your pantry or freezer, but you're interested in a gluten and dairy-free lifestyle. This will give you some ideas for meals. If you like these sort of videos and would like to see more, let me know in the comments. But without further ado, let me show you some meals that I made this past week from my pantry and freezer. We're actually gonna begin with a breakfast recipe. I mean, this is good for any time of day, but I've been basically just having it for breakfast for a couple of weeks straight now. So this is the TikTok breakfast sandwich or egg sandwich, and I actually haven't even seen it on TikTok, but my brother-in-law is apparently a very big fan, so he kind of inspired this. Pretty much, I'm gonna take a couple of eggs and I'm gonna scramble them up in a bowl. I happen to have a lot of gluten-free bread in my fridge because I'm the only one that eats gluten-free bread and I don't do a great job of keeping up with it. So in order to get through it, I am taking these scrambled eggs. I'm going to pour them into a pan, and with the eggs, I'm going to use 2 slices of bread. I'm going to put the bread one side down and then kind of flip it over so that both sides are coated with egg. And I'm going to try to be really careful to put the 2 bottom pieces of the bread touching because that's going to help with the assembly later. As you can see, I covered everything with a lid and I let it cook on medium low for maybe 2 or 3 minutes until the egg was solid enough to flip. And that's just what I'm doing. I'm flipping it over. I'm gonna let it cook a slight tiny bit more on the other side. But now is when we have to move fast because it's time for assembly. So I have my Follow Your Heart Parmesan cheese shreds. This is my favorite dairy-free cheese alternative. I really like how it tastes and I really like how it melts. So I'm folding in the kind of wings of the eggs, if you will, so that they're kind of fitting into the sandwich. If you have to break this to make it happen, it's fine. This is the inside of the sandwich. Nobody's going to see this part. Once you kind of have that in order, you can fill it in with cheese, and I'm gonna use some bacon that I had baked in the oven earlier. You can use ham, turkey, sausage, whatever you like. Bacon is what I had on hand, so it's what I went with. Don't forget to season your eggs. I used some salt and pepper, and I just flipped one bread over the other. Ta-da! Pan sandwich, the best kind of sandwich. This does magical things to the texture of the gluten-free bread to where I can't even tell it's gluten-free, and it's just a quick, easy, and compact breakfast for on the go even. So here I am making bone broth. I have a detailed video explaining exactly how I do this on my channel already, so I'll link it in the description box below. But basically, I call it garbage soup because I'm always roasting whole chickens or eating chicken wings, and I always save the bones plus whatever veggie scraps, herbs, etc. I stick everything in a freezer bag, and once it's full, I make soup. So this is more of a hack than a recipe, but it's just something to kind of liven the broth up. It's basically my favorite soup because the flavors are so well balanced. So we've got brown sugar, lemon juice, coconut milk, some very thin rice noodles, so they're gluten-free, fish sauce, gochugaru, which is like a Korean red pepper flake, and some Thai basil that's seen better days, but it's been in the freezer, so it's still good. And I'm just gonna assemble everything in the same bowl that I'm planning to eat out of once the broth is done. Not really gonna give you measurements because, like I said, this is to your liking, to your flavoring, but this soup is creamy, sweet, umami, sour, spicy. It's absolutely everything, and the noodles absorb all of these flavors. It's divine. Like I said, it's my absolute favorite soup. So I'm gonna put the noodles in just dry because, like I said, the heat from the broth is gonna cook them. And you're gonna put in your little squirt of lemon juice, your fish sauce, a little bit of brown sugar, a little bit of those red pepper flakes. The coconut milk, I suggest about a 1/4 cup per person. So the box of noodles serves 4. The can of coconut milk will serve 4. So if you wanted to make this for like the family, you can just do this all in a pot and then have everybody serve themselves. Pretty much just mix everything together, taste it. Does it need a little more sweet? Add more sugar. Does it need a little more umami? Add more fish sauce. In my opinion, it could always use more fish sauce. Little more sour, some lemon juice. You can't go wrong with this soup. It is absolutely delicious, and like 5 minutes after you pour in the broth, it's ready to eat. Going through my very stuffed and very disorganized pantry, and I'm realizing that I have some stuff. I don't have everything. This is not going to be exactly how it's meant to go, but I have stuff so that I could try to make fricassé de pollo. So I'm gonna attempt it. Like I said, it's not gonna be perfect, and we're just kind of working with what we got, but I think it's gonna be good all the same. So the nice thing about this is that everything's just gonna get thrown into the Instant Pot, and in about an hour we will have lunch, dinner, whatever, probably both. I'm gonna take some chicken that I already have in the fridge. You could even do this from frozen if you're using the Instant Pot. I happen to have chicken tenderloins and bone-in drumsticks. I personally prefer to make this recipe only with dark meat, but I'm using what I have, like I said. I'm gonna throw the chicken into the Instant Pot with some onion, some garlic, a bell pepper that I'm gonna chop up in the best way I can, and I'm also going to throw in a bunch of tomatoes that I have here that are not looking so great. So everything's just going into the pool. Alright, so we're very much experimenting here. What I have on hand is Kalamata olives. It's gonna have to work because I feel like fricassé de pollo without that brininess from either capers or olives is just not fricassé. So this is not going to be the exact flavor profile that we're supposed to have, but that's fine. We're working with what we've got, and I'm sure it's still going to be delicious. I have some tomato sauce here. It's an 8-ounce can. I'm going to throw that in. We've got oregano, cumin, salt, some bay leaves, and you could throw in some cilantro. I happen to have a bunch that I need to use up, so I'm going to go ahead and throw it in. You don't have to do that. I've also got a ton of potatoes that my mom dropped off for some reason. So you know what? Potatoes are going in here too. Why not? So it's been an hour. Probably could have used way less time, especially since everything was not frozen, but an hour is basically my default for everything in the Instant Pot. I went ahead and made some white rice in my rice cooker in the meantime. Rice with potatoes, yes, don't question it. It's an inherently Cuban thing. We do this with everything. And as far as I'm concerned, it's no stranger than serving garlic bread with your spaghetti. But basically, I'm going to put all of that saucy, briny, tomatoey chicken and potatoes and veg on top of this white rice, which is going to be the perfect conveyance for all of that delicious sauce. This actually turned out really, really good. The calamatas were great in place of green olives. Would definitely make this again. As I mentioned earlier, I have a lot of gluten-free bread in my fridge, especially cinnamon raisin bread, and it turns out I'm not really much of a toast eater. So I decided that this would be the day that I used up all of the bread in the house, and the easiest way that I thought to do that was to make bread pudding. So I have all of the bread, which was about maybe 2 full loaves when it came right down to it. One of them is cinnamon raisin, an almost entire loaf, and the rest of them is just random, regular, like white bread, quote unquote, or etc. Right? Just whatever bread you have on hand, about 5 or 6 cups will work. I ripped it all up and put it on a cookie sheet, and I just stuck it in the oven at 350 for about maybe 10 minutes so that it would dry out, and that would make it more conducive to absorbing the custard. And speaking of the custard, I went ahead and got that ready while the bread was toasting up. So I used 3 large eggs, a half cup of brown sugar, a half cup of white sugar, 2 teaspoons-ish of vanilla extract. I used some pumpkin pie spice because I didn't just have plain cinnamon. So you can use cinnamon if you'd like, nutmeg, whatever you have on hand. You could also add raisins to this. I figured since I was using cinnamon raisin bread, I was covered. You need 1 3/4 cup of dairy-free milk. I happen to have a carton of almond milk that I keep in my pantry, but I had already opened it earlier in the week for some other recipe and I needed to finish using it up, so this was the perfect way to do that. And if you'd like, optionally, you could also melt a 1/4 cup of dairy-free butter into this to give it a richer flavor. I had only 1 container left and I only buy it once a month, like in bulk, so I decided to leave that out. But I'm just gonna mix all of these ingredients together, and when the bread comes out of the oven, we're gonna transfer it to, I think this is like a 9 by 13 glass casserole dish. Whatever you have on hand is fine. I'm putting about half the bread down, and then I happened to have yet another bag of something that I wanted to use up, some dairy-free white chocolate chips in my fridge. So I put some chocolate chips kind of as a middle layer, I suppose, and I put the rest of the bread on top of that before covering the entire thing with the custard. I left some bits purposely untouched by custard because I like some crunchy little bits to my bread pudding. So like the contrast between the squishy bits and the crunchy bits. You don't have to do that. You could actually just leave this overnight if you wanted to make sure that the bread absorbs as much of the liquid as possible before baking. I did not. I stuck it straight into my 350-degree oven for, well, I intended 20 minutes, but the timer went off and I wasn't in the room and hubby just turned the oven off instead of letting me know. So it did get a little bit extra crispy on top, but it was still absolutely delicious. I topped it with some more white chocolate chips when it was still warm so that they would get melty and gooey, and it was really, really good. My mom came by later that day and I gave her some to take home and she thought it was delicious, and she eats gluten and dairy, so it passes that test as well. Definitely would make this again if I ever had this much bread on hand again, which I'm hoping I don't. But in any case, that's 4 different meals or recipes that I prepared using only things that I happen to have on hand in my pantry, fridge, and freezer. I hope that these recipes have inspired you to look in your own kitchen and see what you can come up with. If you make any of these recipes yourself, I would love to hear from you. Let me know how you liked them. And as always, keep safe. If you liked the video, please give it a big thumbs up. If you'd like to see more like it, let me know. I'd also love it if you would subscribe and click the notification bell because I post at least 3 times a week and I wouldn't want you to miss a minute. Thank you so much again for watching, and be good out there, guys. Bye.